Hey, Janice.
Hi, Anthony.
Today's title is Frugal is Forever. So, how do you approach saving for retirement? Rhetorical question.
Okay.
Some people focus on earning more, while others focus on spending less. And by the way, these are not mutually exclusive. You can do both, but some people focus more on one or the other. And when you're on the extreme of the saving side, spending less side, there's this whole frugal movement around that. So this frugal or minimalist movement is at the very end of that spectrum of being cost conscious. And to me, it feels like it's bordering on being like a monk or some kind of, yeah. So
Agree.
we're going to talk about the three common rationales for frugality. And then I'll go over three reasons why I actually think this is a dangerously limited way of thinking, with the last reason being by far the most important, so stick around for that. Okay, so first the three reasons, the three rationales for frugality. Number one, they say that being frugal lowers stress, that it feels great to no longer worry about money. And the example might be, hey, this is I'm turning on my sarcastic voice.
Okay.
Hey, I have no stress because I only have to earn a tiny amount of money to cover my living expenses because I don't own a car, my house is tiny, and I eat like a rabbit.
Your statement stresses me out. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, tell me about that. Why does that?
It does. I think there's a difference between living on a budget and living, within your means.
Yep.
But what you just said, eating like a rabbit, that's terrifying to me to have to watch. This seems a little extreme, I think.
So the problem I have with this way of thinking is I think it presupposes that money necessarily equals stress. And it feels like you're foreclosed from the idea that it is possible to make money
Yes.
in an ethical and non-stressful way, doing what you enjoy. In fact,
Yes.
not only is it possible, it's more possible than ever with the internet, with technology. I mean, anyway.
Look, case in point, we are sitting here right now on a podcast. I love it. It's phenomenal and making money. I mean, it's great.
Yeah. So just maybe expand the thinking a little bit there. All right. A second rationale for the frugality or minimalist type way of thinking is, quote, and I'm going to read a quote, not wanting something is as good as having it. And I don't know if that's a Buddhist quote or a Confucian. I think it's from, an East Asian kind of situation. And there's some logic to that. It does help you identify your priorities, what's really important.
Very
and
true.
not wanting things that, suffering for the sake of, out of desire.
Right.
But I disagree with this because it feels like the frugality movement is approaching this as sort of like a willpower mechanism, almost like a diet, right?
Right. That is
I do
all
not
I
like
think
sweets.
about. With
I do
it.
not like sweets. I do not need Doritos.
I will not eat the ice cream. I will not
Yeah.
eat the ice cream. And I'm going to eat the ice cream, but yeah.
But I mean, okay, so for the sake of argument, let's assume that this only applies to material things, because otherwise it kind of falls apart. And I hate to, pick it apart on semantics, but just a couple examples. Okay, so the saying is not wanting something is as good as having it. So would that mean that not wanting delicious food is as good as having it? No, I want delicious food.
No way. Yeah. I totally veto that one because delicious food is delicious food.
What about not wanting good health is as good as having it? I don't think so.
No.
So I would have to guess that this is meant to apply to material things or wanting things that are, I guess, at least beyond your bare necessities, I guess. I don't know.
Okay. Again, I go back to you can not live outside of your means and get the Rolls Royce or the Bentley, but you can get a Honda.
Yep.
But eliminating your car altogether, if you need one to be frugal, seems like a little more stress than the original concept.
Well, that's what the debate is, isn't it?
Right.
So the third rationale is sort of a broad one, but the statement is frugality increases your happiness. Okay, and I do think there's some philosophical logic to this. A quote that I love from the philosopher Naval Ravikant, the Silicon Valley philosopher, is, desire is a contract that you make with yourself to be unhappy until you get what you want.
Okay.
So just to be clear, that's you're willing to take on this desire, which puts you in a position where you're basically dissatisfied until you get it, right? So is this desire worth it, right?
Okay.
And I totally agree, within limits.
Yeah, I do, because you really think about it. Think about what it is that you're looking to attain. Yes.
So some extreme examples of this that I can't get my head around is folks who give up red meat or meat in general, not because they're vegan or vegetarian per se, but because it's too expensive. I mean, if you believe in the nutritional benefits of meat, but you're choosing to substitute that with beans and such because it's less expensive, I mean, you're sacrificing your nutrition, right?
Correct.
I'm not arguing if you believe it or not. Vegans versus meat eaters, but if you do believe it.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. If your only reason is to save money when you have it and you could buy it, it seems a little bit far, right?
I watched a Netflix documentary relating to this area where a family was was able to pay off their mortgage within 8 years, some insanely fast amount. And I was like, well, that's cool. How'd they do that?
Right.
And how they did that was not so cool, at least in my opinion. So it was a family of 4. These are young kids, and the parents are like measuring out how many noodles of pasta they get per meal.
Oh goodness.
I mean, I don't know.
That to me, I do, but that to me sounds stressful, having to measure something. I'm lucky if I get food on the table at the right amount of time, in the right, that it's not burned, let alone to count each noodle. That to me, where this frugality comes in, would stress me out. Yeah.
And another example is, missing a family wedding or a family funeral because you don't want to spend on the flight. And I guess sort of convincing yourself, I have no desire to attend that event, or I've eliminated my desire to attend, family gatherings or pay my condolences to my loved ones. I don't know about that.
And I think there's a difference between not having it, like maybe you don't have the money at that time. That's different. But this is, you have it, you could spend it, but you're not going to, and then you're going to take the time to convince yourself that you shouldn't go when the money could go towards like the mortgage or something. To me, again, that sounds a little far.
So I think the underlying assumption of this mentality is that you want to control your desires so that you want to limit your desires to things that are at least available to you. You don't want to constantly yearning for things that are outside of your reach. I mean, you don't want to live in constant envy.
Yep. Correct. That's reasonable.
But I do think it's okay to desire things that are within your reach.
Right. And like a goal, you could have a goal that you go on that family vacation or attend that wedding.
Or circling back to the first point, increase your earning power so that more things are within your reach.
Correct.
It's not necessarily more money is more stress, but anyway, we already covered that.
Yeah.
All right, so now that we've gone over that, and I think I've clearly exposed my opinion and bias on this topic.
Are you sure Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure.
So let's talk about the 3 reasons why I really think this is not just bad thinking. I think it's actually dangerous thinking. I mean, it can actually really severely limit and maybe even change the trajectory of your life if you embrace this mentality. So the number one thing is it's essentially a race to the bottom. And what I mean by that is, to me, it feels like frugality can be summed up as how close to the poverty line can I live while still convincing myself that I'm enjoying it.
That does not sound, that sounds scary in many, and I don't know, it just sounds scary and terrifying to me to live that close. I mean, I think I've been there at some point in my life, but
I think there are bloggers or thought leaders in this area that actually brag about how they're below the poverty line and how it's great. It's awesome. And
if it works for you,
human beings are capable of convincing ourselves of a lot of things.
Correct. And living just above the poverty line because you can, but you have money. Yeah. I don't know. That just doesn't seem like it. It doesn't even out there.
Now, the other reason I don't like this thinking is because there's a limit. There are bare necessities even the frugal folks have. So you can only go down so much. Whereas on the flip side, there's theoretically no cap on how much you can earn, right? So why are you squeezing yourself into this narrow downward channel instead of just opening it up and flying skyward, which is again limitless?
Right. And I go back to what you're saying about the health. If you're doing this so that you could live better and have a little more money later on, but in the meantime, you're eating a rice diet because you're living at that poverty line and you're not getting the nutrition that you need.
We eat rice all the time, man. Come on.
I do too. But do you put vegetables with it? Maybe a little protein of some sort, I don't, right. But we won't go back to that one. But yes, but a well-rounded, balanced diet. But if you're cutting it all out to eat ramen noodles or rice, that's not a very good diet for your health long term. Are you going to be able to enjoy your
Actually, that's a good point.
retirement?
The difference, that illustrates a difference between short-term and long-term thinking, right?
Right.
Your health is the ultimate long-term thinking, right? So that's interesting.
Yep. You get one shot at that. Yeah.
Very good. Okay, so the second reason I think this is sort of dangerously limited thinking is it's all based on a false assumption that it's hard or stressful to make money. I went over this before. I think it's worth diving into again. So here's my here's my analogy. To me, it feels like folks who are embracing the minimalist or frugal movement, they feel like somebody who's had a bad breakup or a bad relationship, right?
Yep.
Like, this
Never
guy,
do it again.
I'm going to be sexist and make it a girl. So, my last boyfriend treated me so badly. I can't imagine dating again. I'm going to be single for the rest of my life.
Yep.
So just because that guy sucked and doesn't mean that it's not possible to do better. And similarly, just because your past work experiences have been soul draining and made you feel like it's, money is the root of all evil because money means I have to work for this pointy-haired boss, reference to Dilbert.
Right.
That's not the only way it has to be. There are other ways to have a career, earn money, even if it's staying in a corporate job, which is a different corporation. It's not all like your ex-boyfriend.
Right. There are so many things out there. I mean, like you said, it's limitless. If you're at the bottom, you can only go up, and you can keep going up. You can keep going up. You don't like that job? There are more out there.
Yep. There are professional video game players. There are influencers. There's so many different paths to. I mean, if you're in the States, if you're English speaking, if you're in technology, if you're healthy, of course there are certain bare bone minimum.
Of course.
But that's probably 99% of our listeners. So.
Right. I mean, if you don't like your job, look for something different. I don't know that eating just a rice diet to conserve being at a job you hate doesn't sound like a really good mental health or healthy environment.
All right, so the last and by far the most important reason, so you'll be glad you stuck around, is that frugality is forever, all right? And this is from our perspective, my perspective as a professional executor. So what that means is I see how it ends. I'm like a Nostradamus. I see how it all ends for you. Because
what's going to happen.
I've seen hundreds of estates, and I've seen sort of how the last years of folks' lives wind down. I mean, that's kind of what we do for a living. Frugality begets more frugality. You're not going to save your way to a luxurious retirement. You're going to eat beans to have a bean-eating retirement.
Bean-eating retirement, right. And think of, I know, it's kind of side note, but when you get older, it costs more. You have so many more medical bills. You may need help in those last few years. And if you're living frugally, you might not have the money to do the care that you need. You can't live bare minimum when you're older and you need someone to come into your home and help you.
Exactly. If you're in your 20s and 30s, you may be turn off the heat because you can endure the cold a little bit more. You may eat the beans and you may walk 3 miles to 5 miles to work every day. But your bones get creakier. Your body is not always going to be that way. And if you've been frugal this way your whole time, just to be frugal again in your 50s and 60s and 70s, you might be in for a surprise.
I don't know. When you wake up after 30 and 40 and all the benchmarks, it gets harder and harder and harder, and it does get more expensive. And that's the reality of it.
Now, I am aware of exceptions.
Absolutely.
There's always exceptions to the rule, and I'm not going to call out any names, but there is a pretty famous blogger or influencer in the frugality space who, at least partially through frugality, is now very, very wealthy. But I would actually argue that gentleman's wealth is not from being frugal, but from his blog blowing up and doing all the things that we're talking about, making money in different ways. And by the way, now that this particular blogger, because he's very public with his spending, very honest at least, now that he has money, he ain't frugal anymore. He's spending his money.
Right.
It's about having the money now.
Right. Now he's got it. And how frugal is he living with his, 6 bedrooms, 6? Right. Can you do this? Sure, maybe.
He is not hovering at that poverty line anymore.
No.
Okay, so that's all we have. So this was the fair and balanced approach to frugality. Just kidding.
Yeah, fair and balanced. Okay.
But seriously, I've seen it from the finish line point of view. frugality begets more frugality. If this is how you want to live in retirement, then do it now. But if you want a brighter future, work for or approach things with more limitless opportunities, please. Yeah.
Correct. There are other ways to do this that will be more beneficial in the end and throughout your lifetime.
There you go. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Janice, and we'll cover some other great stuff next time. Take care.
We'll talk soon.